You are listening to Fantha tracks.
You're listening to Fantha tracks. Flip through the galaxy of literature. Welcome to Canon Fodder. Here is your host, Mark Newbold.
Okay, so we're joined by Graham Hancock. Graham is the editor of Blocks Magazine. There is a new Star Wars Blocks Magazine out in the world. We thought we'd get you on to talk all about it. Graham, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Mark. Really good to see you, man.
And you. Now tell us everything. There's 132 pages of this beast of a book. So what can readers expect to get out of it?
Oh, Mark, this is one that I've been wanting to do for such a long time. I've been wanting to do a special dedicated issue of Blocks Magazine solely focused on Lego Star Wars because, believe it or not, there are some Lego Star Wars collectors out there who are not interested in non-Star Wars aspects of Lego. And I find it hard to believe as someone who loves it all, but those people exist. And I thought we need to do a magazine for those guys where we collect all the best Lego Star Wars content we can. We pack it into 132 pages. And with The Mandalorian and Grogu coming out, I was like, this is it. This is the excuse. This is the time. This is the way. This is what we're doing. So, yeah, the idea is that the content is like for Lego fans who love Star Wars and Star Wars fans who like a bit of Lego as well. Yeah. So we've got interviews with Star Wars talent and we've got interviews with like Lego professionals and creatives and things like that. So we've really sort of balanced what's in the magazine to kind of cover everything that we can.
And when you're putting a piece like this together, a magazine like this together, because you've described perfectly there the balance between the two. Obviously, on Fantha Tracks, our focus is your Star Wars content, but you know, some months there's not a huge amount of Star Wars content. But for people who are specifically Star Wars focused, I guess that gives you a bit of latitude as an editor to open it up a little bit, to speak to some of the talent on screen and maybe ask them what they think about Lego and so on and so forth. So where do you find the balance between the two?
Yeah, that's such a good question because it's exactly how I start when I'm kind of thinking about it and putting a flat plan together and deciding what balance do we need for this. My first thought was we need to make sure that we have such a strong Star Wars connection in this particular issue. And I was thinking of people who've been involved in Star Wars and have a really good story to tell, but also have something to say about Lego Star Wars. So like Anthony Daniels is someone who really loves the Lego Star Wars animated content that he's been involved in. And I remember like the first time I spoke to him about it, I was surprised what a passion he had for it. But of course, he's also got an amazing story because he's the only actor to have been in all 9 films and everything. So yeah, he talks us through his journey in Star Wars, you know, from when he first was in the deserts of Tunisia to, you know, his final day on the Rise of Skywalker. And we illustrate the feature with little vignettes that some really talented builders have put together that show C-3PO's role in each film. So as you turn the pages, you read Anthony's words about it, but then you see images of like little Lego vignettes of like, you know, 3PO on Chewbacca's back running through Cloud City and all this sort of thing. And then Ashley Eckstein, like, you know, she wore a dress made of 100,000 Lego bricks on stage. And I was like, well, that's a good story. But then, of course, she's also got the whole story of, you know, being part of the Clone Wars from the beginning and having her kind of role in fandom as like the ultimate ambassador or something, like, you know, that she's kind of become for Star Wars fans. So, you know, we spoke to her for the magazine. And then Sam Witwer with more Shadow Lord coming out. It was just like getting his insight into how he thinks about that role, and the collaboration between him and the animators was really, really interesting. And it was like, yeah, this is the perfect moment to put that in the magazine.
It really is, because obviously next year we've got the 50th, which is just going to be nuts for everybody, obviously. And we've got, you know, Mando and Grogu, as you just mentioned, more Shadow Lords with us now. We've got Ahsoka Season 2 coming up, and then next year Starfighter. So in terms of content for Star Wars fans, it's just at that, you know, edge of the roller coaster right now. And you, as you've just described, have picked the perfect people. I do know Anthony. I had the good fortune to interview him for Insider once, and in his house he has a Lego model of 3PO about so big, and he did say, this is before the auction he had a few years ago, he said, if I get rid of everything else, I'll never get rid of that. It's wonderful that you get to speak to him, as you say, with that tangible connection he's got, this clear affection for Lego Star Wars.
Well, I was so chuffed when he mentioned that to me because I was like, oh, well, if you get a chance to just snap a quick photo of it. And then, like, literally within, an hour of us getting off the phone, he'd pinged a picture of him with his C-3PO statue. And then, like, it did ring a bell. And I looked back through my kind of photo archive that I've got from through the years. And it was at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim in 2015 that he was presented with it. As part of Lego Star Wars Droid Tales, which is one of the animated shows that he was involved in. So it was really funny that like he was so proud of his thing, he mentioned it, and I was like, I'm sure that rings a bell. And I was able to go back and pull the photo out, and all of a sudden, all the hoarding of photos that I do over the years makes sense because you can make these connections and pull things together.
I'm Anthony Daniels, and you are listening to Fantha Tracks. Well done.
What did you learn? For example, speaking to Sam, I mean, Sam's such an interesting fellow, and Maul Shadow Lord is the thing as we speak right now. Obviously, season 1 has just kicked off, and we know we're getting season 2. I don't know, are there any Maul Shadow Lord sets coming out, and what's Sam's kind of feel for and interest in Lego Star Wars?
Well, we didn't get as much about Lego Star Wars out of Sam as I had hoped, but he did. The thing I wanted to touch on with him was in Lego Star Wars The Empire Strikes Out, which is one of the early specials where they were just doing loads of parody stuff in 22 minutes and having a lot of fun with it. And the Emperor brings Darth Maul back to kind of annoy Darth Vader, basically. And Sam does the voice of Darth Maul, but in such a different way to the way that he does it in the Clone Wars and Shadow Lord and everything. And he's like singing awesome, awesome, awesome to the theme of Duel of the Fates, and like the animated characters just leaping around the screen, showing off all of his acrobatics and everything. But he did say that, like, as much as you kind of think about the work and all the kind of passion and everything that you put into it, what you really dream of is having an action figure. So he likes the fact that he's got a Lego Star Wars minifigure of his character. Yeah, we've not seen anything so far. I don't know if it's because of the focus being on the new movie or not, but hopefully there'll be something at some point because, it'd be really nice to get some sets from it.
Ashley, she was in Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy Pieces of the Past. She came in as Brickhead Ahsoka. Did she talk about that at all?
Yeah, she was saying how much fun it was and the fact that the creators really understood the voice of Ahsoka. And I was surprised because I wasn't sure that she would have known what Brickhead Ahsoka was ahead of doing it. Because, again, it's like a slightly obscure section of Lego Star Wars collecting, the Brickheads line. But she knew of Brickheads Ahsoka because she was saying that whenever she's in the store and things, she has a little look in the toy aisle. And if there's something like Brickheads Ahsoka there, she'll just kind of buy 4 or 5 of them. And then she has them on hand. So if she meets kids or anything, she can sign one for them and give it to them. So, yeah, I thought that was really cool and just a really pleasant surprise that, she was familiar with it before she went to record the voice for it.
What other voices can we expect to read and hear from in the magazine?
So there's a guy called Jens Kronvold Fredriksson, and he's the design director of Lego Star Wars, and he has been doing that role, well, not that specific role, but he's been involved in Lego Star Wars since it very first kicked off in 1999, which is really unusual within the Lego group. They often like to move people around and things, but he's like the Yoda at this stage of the Lego Star Wars design team. Like, he's the guy who's been there, seen it all, designed it all, overseen so many different iterations of Lego Star Wars sets. So we talked to him about the evolution of it through the years and how it's kind of shifted and changed and different things, different periods of it. And it's just really interesting to get that big overview from him and really hear some context about how it's all developed over time. We talked to a guy called Ryan McNaught, who'd be very familiar to people in Australia because he's the judge on Lego Masters Australia. And he's also got a really fancy job title. He's a Lego certified professional. And what that means is he's got the stamp of approval from the Lego group to do authorized exhibitions with amazing, like, large scale Lego creations that literally blow your mind because, well, figuratively blow your mind because you're looking at these things and it's like, how on earth do they do this? Like, how do they have enough bricks? How structurally does this thing work? And in Australia, they've got a touring exhibition at the moment focused on Lego Star Wars. So he's created all these amazing large-scale models and actually developed new techniques to build the faces of the characters so they look more like the actors than ever before. Because in the past, sometimes when you see these big statue models at the premieres and things, you think, is that supposed to be Adam Driver? But in this exhibition, these guys look on point. Like the Count Dooku one is incredible likeness for Christopher Lee and things. So his interview is really interesting, talking through that.
That's fascinating. With you having been involved with the magazine for so long, you must have seen over time, and plenty of innovation and the world of Lego, which is so sort of premier in Star Wars collecting now and has been for a good long while, really. In a way, without making it sound weird, a rags to riches story because it came along just at the right time. What's the biggest innovation that you can think? I know it's slightly off topic from the mag, but what's the biggest innovation you can think of that's come along? Because it strikes me, speaking to Jens, who's been there through that whole run, and now we've got the new Lego Play, the smart brick and such, which is obviously a huge innovation. What to your mind has been the big change? Because you mentioned Lego Masters and touring exhibitions. It's its own ecosystem there.
Well, I think that's one side of it. Definitely is just the way that. Rags to riches is a good way of putting it, because if you think about the first few years of Lego Star Wars, it had a really big, good smash hit in 1999, really popular right out of the gate with all the Phantom Menace sets and so on. But then through those early years, Lego Star Wars didn't seem to quite know how to market the products in the off-movie years. So in between the prequels, you'd see a lot of Lego Star Wars sets on discount and things like that, which is hard to believe now because some of those same sets are the most sought-after, expensive things on the aftermarket. But I think what happened is Lego Star Wars managed to establish itself as its own brand almost. It's like the sum of Lego and Star Wars was greater than the two separate things. And unlike any other kind of licensee, I mean, maybe a little bit Funko have kind of managed to pull this off, but it has become its own little subsection of the Star Wars galaxy. So I think from a kind of brand perspective, they really managed to do something a bit special and a bit unique there. But in terms of the products, I think they really found something nice when it probably was sort of the mid-noughties where they really started to balance models that were good for play and display. So these models would be really fun for a kid. They're really fun to just fly around and stuff. But for an adult collector, they always also look like really nice on a shelf. Like you feel really proud of this thing and you don't feel like it looks like you've got a toy on the shelf. It looks like you've got a replica of an X-Wing or an Imperial shuttle or whatever it happens to be.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
It's incredible thinking from the outside as somebody who appreciates Lego but doesn't collect Lego, because I love Lego. I love Lego as a
It's
kid,
another rabbit hole that you have to avoid, right? Before
literally, it so is. It so is. And every now and again, a set gets gifted, or I pick something up and I start having a little mooch. And I'm like, I've got to run a website. I haven't got time. But Star Wars, you could be into Star Wars. We talk about this on Making Tracks quite a lot. That you can be into Star Wars and just be into Lego Star Wars and have, places to go, things to see, things to buy, things to watch. It's its own, as you say, its own thing with, TV shows. And if you spread out a little bit, obviously the Lego movies and such. It's such a wonderful way of introducing kids to Star Wars, because now, we think over the generations that stepping on points is the movies, but actually as you move further into the realm of Star Wars, it wasn't always just the movies. As you said, there was TV, or you might be a comics kid who got in through the comics, or since 99 got in through Lego. Do you see a lot of that?
Oh, definitely. And I think the video games were a whole big part of A, building the brand, but B, that introduction point for kids, because it was so clever when they launched the first one, because Lego Star Wars was the first video game from the new partnership between Lego Group and TT Games back in 2005. And it literally has established a formula that has worked for TT Games for the 27 years since. It's, the sort of the way that anyone can pick up a controller, dive into those games, play out the familiar beats of the Star Wars movies, but with the comical, ridiculous aspect of Lego minifigures. And kids can play it, and they can get on board with it. And but people who enjoy video games can also kind of defeat it to 100% and go through all the extra challenge levels and things. And then Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, when they released that video game a couple of years ago, it elevates all that stuff to such a ridiculously high quality that you have to pinch yourself when you remember how Lego Star Wars started to think, on this 50-inch TV, this minifigure and the bricks around it has so much depth and detail. And these video game developers are taking Lego Star Wars so seriously that it just as much as, say, Jedi Fallen Order or, all the other Star Wars video games that are out there. And yeah, we talked to the developers, actually. That's one of the other interviews in the magazine, is obviously you can't do Lego Star Wars without video games because it's such an important part of the whole experience and ecosystem.
I'll be remiss if I didn't ask you about Lego Smart Play, because we've covered a bit on the site on Fantha, and so we kind of know what's coming out, what's out there, and so on and so forth. We've seen some examples of it. In fact, my co-host on Making Tracks, Mark Mulcaster, and his partner Karen were in the video, the advert, the big advert with all the X-Wings and the two kids playing. So we've got a bit of a connection.
Fabulous.
Yeah. So we've got a bit of a connection to it there. Karen's the green Twi'lek you see at the end around the table. But give me a little bit of background on Smart Play. I mean, it seems to be such a big, bold move for a company that, and you can never rest on your laurels, understood, in business and in anything. But it felt like, of all the companies that didn't need to do something like this, it was Lego. So why do you think they've done it? And, what can people expect to find when they, go out and buy one?
Well, the Lego Group's always forward thinking. So they've got this special department in the company called the Creative Play Lab. And their job is to think not about what kids want to play with next year or the year after, but what might kids want in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Like, this is the kind of really wacky development side of things where there's 100 experiments going on at any one time, and only one of them might even make it to testing, let alone make it to market. And basically, they wanted to create something that was going to encourage kids to play with their toys more. Now, they haven't said this part, but reading between the lines, I think other research that we've read outside of the Lego Group says that kids aren't playing with toys as much as they used to, that they're aging out of them earlier than they used to and switching over to more screen-based activities. So my suspicion is that maybe the Lego Group have found that kids are building their Lego set and then putting it on the shelf the same way you would a Funko Pop or something, and not actually playing with it the way we would have played with our action figures when we were kids. I think the smart brick, the idea behind it is it gives kids a reason to pick that X-Wing up off that shelf and fly it around. And in fact, while I'm talking about this, why don't we get the smart brick out? You have to shake it to wake it.
Right.
A-Wing's handy. Let's go with that. And then literally you grab your smart brick, you just pop it into the set that you've built, and it's going to give it noises so you can fly around. It can fire, and if you get an enemy ship, have we got one of those handy? Darth Vader's TIE Fighter? Yes. Another brick going on. We pop that in there. And then these guys can shoot at each other. And eventually, I might take the bricks out so you can actually hear me instead of all the sound effects. But yeah, they can fire at each other, and like eventually one of them will destroy the other after you've kind of had enough of a battle and everything. It reacts really quickly. So you can imagine kids are going to pick their setup off the shelf to hear the noise and see the sounds and everything. But I'm thinking the idea is that it's going to lead to a bigger play session. Right. So they start off doing the stuff with the smart bricks, but then obviously, before you know it, you're playing out the whole Star Wars saga, obviously doing your own sound effects and things, and, creating your own explosions and pulling bits off your Lego bricks as they blow each other up and all of this.
I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson, and you are following Fantha Tracks.
The noises that they make might just get the kids so into it that they start making their own pew-pew sounds like we were doing sort of 30, 40 years ago or whatever. That's a great little idea.
Well, this is the thing, 'cause there's a limit to how many noises these things can make, obviously, with a single thing. Like, Darth Vader's lost his helmet. He's still talking. So yeah, the minifigures in them as well have sounds and things. And the smart brick actually synthesizes the sounds as you're doing them. They're not kind of pre-recorded. But you can get Darth Vader's breathing and everything, and he'll sort of babble away and whatnot. But I think that's it. There's a limitation, though, to how many noises Darth Vader's going to make. So you're going to have to throw in your own kind of extras and things, and you're going to have to add your own to the mix as you're playing with them. So,
I suppose it's a bit like what you said earlier about how far Lego has come, and how if you look back, 10, 15, 20 years, your mind would be blown by where Lego is now. I guess to what you're saying there, then, that this is the start of the next portion of Lego. And, if we were doing the conversation like this in 10 years' time, let's hope we are, that you might go to, remember that conversation we had 10 years ago and I showed you that Darth Vader Lego, but look at it now, it's going to be walking around, or you don't know, it could be doing anything. So I suppose it's the start of that.
I think this is what's really interesting with Smart Play, is that it started with lights and sounds in these Lego Star Wars sets.
Yeah.
But Lego Group are talking about this as a first step, that they don't want to kind of overburden the consumer with something that's too complicated. So I think the really interesting thing is going to be where it goes in the future, because, this is really good, just fun, goofy stuff that I think kids are going to get a real kick out of. But it's not necessarily for like adult collectors in the same way as some of the other sets and things are. Like, it's never going to replace your Ultimate Collector Series, 3,000 piece thing that you want to build. It's definitely a different part of the Lego Star Wars product line to that.
What's exciting you right now? I mean, stuff that's out on market right now, obviously don't want to give anything away, but things that are coming ahead, is there anything that you're thinking, oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, that sounds like fun, or that right now you're just digging, having around?
I'm really curious about what's going to happen for May 4th, but that's always exciting. Lego Group always do something big for that. But I mean, I can't imagine it's going to top the Mandalorian and Grogu stuff, because new movie stuff is always the most exciting stuff, right? Toys from a new film that you haven't seen yet, just get your imagination going. Yeah. And in particular, out of the Lego Star Wars sets for it, the one I'm really excited to build. In fact, they turned up literally a couple of days ago. I've got the new sets to review for the magazine. So this week, I've got to crack on with it, get them built ASAP. And we've got the Anzellan starship that we saw in the trailer, where like Grogu's crammed into that cockpit with the Anzellans around him, and I'm really looking forward to building that, because it just looked, well, for a start, the Anzellans are so much fun in Mando Season 3, right? And their interactions with Grogu and everything. So building a little ship for them to fly around in is just fabulous. And the new Razor Crest looks really on point as well. Yes. I'm really looking forward to putting that together.
Yeah, it's exciting times. Where can people find the magazine?
Yes, if they go to blocksmag.com, they can get it there. That's the easiest way. It will be available in select retailers in May, but the easiest way, just get it delivered, no hassle, no fuss. Go over to blocksmag.com, and it will land on your doorstep shortly thereafter.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this. It's a magazine, as I say, we always cover it on Fantha, and it's always very much appreciated when you send the information out. But it's so cool that, like you say, finally, there's a Star Wars dedicated issue.
Oh, Mark, I'm so chuffed with it. Like I say, something I've been thinking about for such a long time, to have it out there in the world now. Really, really happy with it. But thanks so much for having me, man. It's always fun to catch up and have a chat.
Brilliant.
Thank you for joining us for this special edition of Canon Fodder. For more Star Wars podcast content, be sure to subscribe to Fantha Tracks Radio on your podcatcher of choice. Subscribe to all our social media at links.fanthatracks.com. Be sure to be checking out fanthatracks.com daily for all your latest Star Wars news. And you can also join us live on YouTube for Good Morning Tatooine every Sunday evening at youtube.com/Fanthatracks TV.
Coming up next on Fantha Tracks Radio, it's Making Tracks Reaction Chat.